All right, welcome back to talkSPORT End Zone, talkSPORT's dedicated NFL YouTube channel, ahead of the second London game of the season, where the Chicago Bears take on the Jacksonville Jaguars, live and exclusive on talkSPORT 2, plus streaming on this very YouTube channel. We did that last weekend. It was a wild and weird experience, but you all got involved, really enjoyed it, so come down and give it a watch. Did I say we're down here at the Goldwood, the Greenwood? Which one even is this?
Greenwood.
Of the Wood pubs. The Greenwood pub, the Chicago Bears pub, and we're here with Greg Rosenthal from NFL Daily and the Read Optional's Ollie Connolly to look forward to the game this weekend. Gents, how are you? How are you enjoying your London experience so far?
Doing good. I never sleep in London, so Greg had to come all the way over from the US and probably slept more than me. So
yeah, I'm on my first day here, but it's reminded me of the first time I was ever in London. Will came and met me at a bar. I was covering the Jeff Fisher Rams with Case Keenum starting.
That's why we were drinking.
And we've been buddies ever since. So good to be
love
with
it.
you.
Absolutely love it. Let's start off with the Chicago Bears for this weekend. And the big question mark, Caleb Williams, 4 games in. I'll turn to you first, Ollie. How are you feeling about the early experience?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. The way they approached his development was just throw everything at him. They gave him a ginormous playbook. They asked him to do an awful lot. And I know we spoke before about the comparisons to Jaden Daniels and some concerns in the fan base, maybe more online than would be in the building. But the Commanders took a completely different approach of let's do what Daniels does best. We'll slow bake this thing. Whereas with Williams, it was more let's throw everything at him, and by week 8, week 9, it comes online. And I think we saw last week that it's coming along a bit quicker than maybe even they would have anticipated. So I think there's been a bunch of teething problems, but heading now in the right direction.
This was meant to be the book on Caleb Williams, right? He was going to come in and he was going to throw a bunch of picks and he was going to have a bunch of crazy moments and he was going to try and be a bit of a gunslinger. And so I'm kind of slightly surprised this wasn't what people were expecting.
I mean, I was expecting more just because I'm unrealistic, and he was he was the most exciting prospect I can remember. Andrew Luck and him would be the 2 prospects that I watched that were just on another level. And Drake May wasn't that far away, so I'm excited to see him this Sunday. But Caleb Williams, last 2 weeks, the weird thing is he's been incredibly efficient and effective, but there haven't been the crazy, spectacular plays. You see it 2 or 3 times a game. But other than that, he's just been protected well. For the most part, the ball's getting out quickly the last couple of weeks. You play the Panthers and that'll happen, but I think it's a similar matchup this week where he's not going to face a ton of pressure, at least see a lot of open receivers too.
The suggestion was that this was the best situation a rookie
of all
quarterback's
time.
coming to. Mate, all time is what people were suggesting.
That was the cliche.
I never bought that. I was like, have you ever watched the Chicago Bears? And have you ever watched the Matt Eberflus Chicago Bears?
I think that's a little. The last 8-9 games of last season had me buying in a little bit. I started to believe that maybe this was going to be that situation, but it was never going to be perfect. The offensive line clearly isn't quite to where the level they were thinking it was going to be.
Mess.
Trying to be polite about it, but from what I've seen on film and from what I've seen game to game is a steady improvement, less of the boneheaded plays week to week. I think he's a lot of fun to watch, so I don't understand why people have got an issue with it.
No, I think that Greg made a good point about we're just not getting the spectacular highs that was the hope, where you see he doesn't look next level quick, which he was in college, where he would make so many people miss in the backfield, he'd move around and create in ways we really haven't seen at that kind of level. It was Mahomesian in college football. Even Mahomes didn't move the way Caleb did in college football. He didn't have as bad an offensive line when he was at Texas Tech. So I was hoping to see more of that. I was expecting that to be those terrible plays rather than the in structure, bad decisions, taking too long to go through things. So now we're at the point where he's operating way more quickly. Like you said, he's getting through things more efficiently, but I would almost personally trade off some of the efficiency to give us some of the sizzle. Let's get some more explosivity into the offense. So they've really aired things back with him in the last couple of weeks. I'm hoping on Sunday against the Jags defense, they should really light up. That Jags defense is not very good. They're so basic and simple. This should be a week where he has time to operate and move, and I hope it's not just hit the back foot, get the ball out. Let him go and create some stuff.
That is how it felt, definitely. The Panthers in particular, you watch that game, it's there's a lot of very in structure, very simple, my favourite phrase of Ollie's grip it and rip it stuff, just getting the ball out. And I don't know, I'm like, why wouldn't you do that for a rookie quarterback? Why not make it easy for him?
Well, you should do it when it's working, which it was against the Panthers.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was enough the week before. There were a couple plays in the last couple weeks, though, where his feet just seem locked to the ground when there's people around him. And that almost feels like he's hearing the coaching points of, don't bail too quickly.
Yes.
And maybe he's overcorrecting in the short term, and that'll be fine in the long term.
he is really locked into number one now. Caleb Williams was always amazing in college, going 1, 2, 3 so fast, then taking off. He was not a one read and go creator. He would still try and work through things, just the line was so poor and he would bail out. You can see the first third down of the game when he takes the bad sack against the Panthers. He is just staring things down. Like Greg says, his feet are locked, his eyes are locked. So it's pretty clear they've said, at least for the next few weeks, we just want you to master the structure. You'll always have the ability to move and create, but the only slight concern I have through the opening weeks is, like I said, he doesn't actually look like he's moving at a level that is really, really dynamic in the backfield, which is the real special something he had that I thought would translate immediately.
Beyond Williams, this Bears team, this Matt Eberflus Bear team, what do you like? Where are they defensively for you? Where are they in the scope of the NFL, in the NFC North? Like, what is the ceiling for this team this season?
I mean, I never totally trust a team that's defense first. When the defense is good but not great, you can run on them. So are they a team in 2024 that's built for some of the better running teams in the league, like Green Bay is in their division? But it's a great secondary. They're cohesive. Their vision of like building up that back end and their linebacker group, it's played out where if they play a below average offense, and I would consider the Jaguars one of those teams, they're not going to give up more than 20 points. And they know all the coaching points. They know this defense. It's a veteran defense. It's not an amazing pass rush, but they're going to probably win more games than they lose this year, which if you're a Chicago Bears fan, like it's
honestly,
been a minute.
That should be enough.
Yeah.
That should be enough, but the expectation felt so high. All of that stuff about, like, best situation and Caleb coming in and Roma Dunze going in the first round as well, and everything that they did supposedly was perfect. Absolutely bang on. And
that always for me overlooked the fact that they have one of the worst starting players in the league at center who touches the ball on every single snap. So I don't know how you can have the best situation in the league when the worst player on your roster is touching the ball every single snap. That would be a concern for me.
That's why I like listening to Ollie. Like, no one else feels as authoritative when he says, like, the worst center in the league.
He can't snap the ball. They have botched snaps every single week. They have plays early in the season where the ball, it's not even that the snap is bad and you see it roll on the ground or go over eye, where the location is just off, so Williams has to drop and look, then he's looking up and it's just pure carnage in front of him. So if you can't snap the ball consistently, then it's like the 101 thing of the operation of the offense.
Keenan Allen looked better last week, too. And Adunze's looked fine. Like, when you watch him on film, like, he's moving well. I'm not worried about Roma Dunze. He looks good.
In theory, that 1-2-3 with DJ Moore as well, that should work. That should be, like, as good as anywhere else in the league.
Yeah, I think they've used them in the wrong roles at times. I really like Shane Waldron. I know he gets pelters. Bears fans will be upset at Shane Waldron. I think he's a really smart coach who doesn't always have a great feel for, like, the flow of a game. And they've put the three of them have such different overlapping skill sets. That was part of why it was so exciting. You have the three of them together. You have like the jump ball, Keenan Allen, veteran smarts guy. Roma Dunze is a 3-level threat. Moore is more of the explosive guy. And yet when you watch how they're actually putting them out in the route pattern, it's often like they've flip-flopped roles where Keenan Allen's being used to like stretch the field and no one respects it, and Keenan looks like confused certainly in the first week of the season. So I think Allen actually taking some time away, having the injury, has allowed them to like better figure out who is better in what role, and them just simplifying things, I think, has helped them.
I feel like you've both thrown shots at the Jaguars already so far, but let's talk about their opponents this weekend. And firstly, did you see enough from Trevor Lawrence against the Colts this past weekend that have you thinking that they're going in the right direction?
Yeah, that he's a rhythm player, and he seems sometimes like a confidence player, a streaky player, so he's coming off of his best game of the year. At least he should feel a little freer to be aggressive. They've thrown the ball downfield quite a bit, and they've basically haven't hit a lot most weeks. So this is a tough matchup for Trevor, but I think they can protect against the Bears. The Bears aren't like that great up front. Their pass rush hasn't been amazing this year, and I think they're going to need to throw the ball and feel like they have to keep up in this game.
Hitting the deep shots last week made such a huge difference because the horrible interception, for example, against the Bills, the Zamar Hamlin one where he's got Brian Thomas wide open. Great moment for everyone who's watching at home, but that's just a terrible, terrible overthrow. I think, like, the thing for me is I looked at how that receiver setup was last year, and it felt like they had 3 Z receivers almost, all playing trying to spread them out across the formation, but basically 3 guys who should be playing the
Yeah.
same role. Whereas Brian Thomas felt like the remedy to what that offense really needed. And I don't know if it was just me defending the Jags a bit too much, if it was like a London bias thing or whatever, but I kind of bought in. I was all in on the Jags taking a big step forward this year.
Yeah, not personally for me. Trevor Lawrence is just such a streaky player. There's not one thing you can say he does at a top 3, top 5 level in the league every single week. Right, you go through the top quarterbacks, all of them, whether it's shred the blitz, create plays, downfield thrower. He's good at a lot of the things, and one week he'll be excellent at one of them and terrible at another, and then the next week he's excellent at the other thing and terrible at the other thing. So it's just hard to trust this guy who you're going to get 2 plays a week that are just bone-edited. Why did he throw that? Why did he throw it there? Why did he throw it to him? That's going to happen. They're facing a secondary that is so talented. I know Jaquan Brisker's not there, which is like a real loss to how they actually structure the defense. But Kevin Byard has come back. Like, it's the most unbelievable transformation I've seen in a veteran player. I don't know if he went to Germany, Kobe's doctor, whatever these guys do in the offseason.
He left Tennessee, I think was the key thing that he did.
So I struggle to have faith in Trevor Lawrence every week, because the main thing that stands out when you watch him on film is he just misses open throws all the time. A guy that physically talented should not miss open receivers all the time. It's not as though, you made a good point, that they had guys who all have a similar skill set, but guys were open last season, guys have been open this season, and he just sails and misses throws that someone with that contract, that level of talent should just never miss.
All right, well, how much do we need to look at coaching then, if that's the case? Because that's now been 4 years of Trevor Lawrence, that's been the what he's been putting on tape, and yet there doesn't seem to have been any improvement.
I mean, if you listen to Doug Peterson and you listen to coaching, he said the same thing as Ali just said, which is like, the players got to play better. There are guys open.
It's kind of your job, Doug.
Right, but I agree with Doug and Ali that there have been guys open, and Brian Thomas Jr. has been awesome. I was so big on him before the draft, and I'm patting myself on the back that, like, this guy moves better than that. Like, he just moves differently than other people, and he's been had a little more variety as a pro. Like, there's more in breakers and everything, and it's partly just because everyone's so afraid of his speed, but he'd be in the mix for Offensive Rookie of the Year in a world that Jaden Daniels doesn't exist. So they got what they wanted out of him, and Tank Bigsby, I think, is a big part of Sunday's game. I mean, he's had a lot of juice. He breaks tackles week after week. If you do the rate stats of explosive runs and broken tackles, like, he is near the top, and I think the Bears' defense is built in a way where if you're going to beat them, running the ball would be the way to do it, and so it's kind of like Bigsby is 1A with ETN, and maybe that's a route that they can go.
I think it was the next gen stats who had as the rushing yards over expected for that play. He was expected to get -6 and broke off a 70-yard touchdown. Like, you know, how you figure out exact expected yardage, but one broken tackle doesn't feel like it should be enough to quite get a 76-yard swing.
Preseason matters. Occasionally a guy pops in all throughout preseason, we heard from the Jaguars reporters, like, it's a new Tank Bigsby. In the preseason, it kind of looked like a new Tank Bigsby, and he really does look like a new Tank Bigsby.
Did you expect to be talking new Tank Bigsby? No. Got so much depth today.
I think the coaching point is interesting, though. When I watch Doug Peterson's offense now, there are guys wide open. That is fair, and people miss him, and Doug's got a point that the players should play better. It does feel slightly stale, and like the staff is out of ideas. They've always had a problem with how they actually call the plays and who's calling what and what down is whose responsibility and those kind of things. But there's nothing really fresh or new or innovative or even that creative. It's just kind of the best practice stuff everyone in the NFL runs, and that's fine, and they should hit it. But they're facing a defense now who, Greg made a good point. Like, it's not a top pass rushing group. They should be able to get some pressure, but they disguise and do all kinds of cool things on the back end. You have to have something in your bag to be able to attack that, whether it's tempo or getting really spread out, and they've just been running the same thing now week after week for years since Doug's been here.
But I think, like, the point on Doug Peterson and the knock against him when he went and won a Super Bowl with the Eagles was that was all about the assistants, that was all about the coordinators, that was all about the quarterback coach, and I think you see that elsewhere in the league. I think, like, Nick Sirianni, the drop-off last year in quality. Dan Campbell, there is the accusation that, like, he's not the guy who's drawing up your X's and O's, but those guys are real vibes guys. Like, they are the people who come into your building and get people going. I don't see that ever from Doug Peterson, so I don't know. If he's not got the right assistants around him, I don't know if he's ever going to have success.
No, I'll push back on Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell is really intelligent. People buy into the rah-rah thing. He's a really clever, talented schemer of football. It's just people buy into the big guy. It must be the small white dweeby guy who's coming up with all the plays. No, Dan Campbell is really, really intelligent with scheming up football. But yeah, Peterson has always been a guy who takes a back seat. It's more of like, here's the philosophy of what we're going to do. You guys go and build the game plan. I'll sign off on it, and then we'll see how it goes on the Sunday. I think he would do well to like be way more invested and involved in like the week to week of building the game plan out.
Considering who's sat here, I think it's really harsh to dig out small white tweeted guys, mate. Come on. Not acceptable at all. Not acceptable. What do you expect from Sunday, Greg?
I mean, I think the Bears are going to win if you're looking for like a pick. I think it'll be lower scoring than high scoring because the Bears only kind of need to score 20 probably to win this game. Like the Jaguars defense, they're coming off of a game where they made Joe Flacco and Alec Pierce look like, I don't know, like Dan Marino and Mark Duper and Mark Clayton like back in the days. But like, so they're very weak on the back end. Although Trayvon Walker's coming off maybe his best game in there. It's a team that the vibes are bad, and I've heard some things about like I think it's a tense situation in Jacksonville. I don't think we knew Doug Peterson was making the trip to London before last week. If they had lost that game after being up 10, there was some buzz, and so they probably have to win one of these 2 London games. That's a tough way to play football, and I just don't think they're as talented as the Bears ultimately.
Yeah, I agree. I think Doug Peterson's in real trouble of being tarmacked, whether it's this week, whether it's next week, whether they put him up in a hotel for this week and someone else gets to take it at Wembley the week after.
We know there's the London curse, but
we've
could
never
they
seen that happen
midway
before.
between 2 games?
Yeah,
like
you just leave someone in London. I'm not sure. I just think that the Jags are the most stilted, basic defense in football. They play more press coverage than anyone. They do nothing in the blitz game, stunt game, creative stuff. They don't have players. Go through their depth chart now. I would challenge you to go look at the cornerback starting for the Jags. They play more man coverage and press coverage than anyone in the NFL. It's really bad. So that's very
Gus
easy
Bradley,
to
your
game
scheme
plan
worked
against.
really well because you had the best corners in the NFL.
Exactly.
Now you don't. Figure it out.
So I think that it's going to be I think the Bears will be able to put up points, even if it's not successful drive after drive. I think they'll hit some real big explosive plays, and I think the Bears can away with it pretty comfortably.
Love it. Gents, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with us. Check out NFL Daily, check out the Read Optional, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel here at talkSPORT Endzone for more content and the live stream of the game this weekend. Hopefully some of the boys will be joining us up on commentary at the gantry at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Thank you for your time. I forget how to end these videos, so I'm just going to leave it like that. Cheers.